Greetings and best wishes. Today, I'd like to teach you a very important formula in the world of, in the world of mathematics, actually. It's a very useful formula. It's known as the quadratic formula. All right? So, what does this formula mean? Or what does it say? Well, bear with me for a second. It says that an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equivalent to 0. It has to be equivalent to 0. Now, if you'd want to solve for x, the quadratic formula states that x would be equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of that is going to be over 2a. Okay, so now this formula might look a little bit intimidating at first, but I'll run you through it. So basically, these coefficients of x, a and b, they can be anything. They can be 1, right? They could be 1, c could be 0, whatever. That's okay, right? So, let's do a hypothetical example before we get into some problems. Let's say we have the equation of x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Okay? Right? Now, how would we solve this using the quadratic formula? I know you can factor it as x plus 1 squared, but that's not what we're learning today. We're learning the quadratic formula. I'm just doing a simple example. So what can we identify as our a? Well, a would be 1, right? Whenever you see a term without any number in front of it, the coefficient is always going to be 1, okay? So this would be 1. So a, let me write that down. A would be equal to 1. And what's our b? Well, b is just bx, right? b, what's our b? Well, 2. b would be 2 if you draw a link here, from here and here. So b would be 2. And what's our c? Our constant term. Well, c is just 1. So c equals 1, right? Okay, let's plug this into the formula. Let me write it down again so we can remember. X is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Right? So now this would also be equal to x is equal to, what is negative b? Well, negative b is just the same as negative 2 because b equals 2, right? So negative b would just simply be the negative of positive 2 because b equals 2, so therefore negative b would be negative 2. So then we've done our negative b plus minus the square root. We have another b, right? b squared. So what is b? Well, b is 2, right? So what is 2 squared? Well, 2 squared would be 4, but let's just write it as 2 squared for now. 2 squared, okay? Right? Minus 4. You don't need to do anything about that. Well, what's our a? Well, a is 1. So let's write that down. A is equal to 1. What's our c? Well, c is just 1, right? 1 here. This is our constant term, c. 4 bracket 1 bracket 1. All right? And all of this is going to be over to a. And what's a? What's a? A is equal to 1. Remember that, a equals 1. So 2 bracket 1. Right? Hope this makes sense. Okay, then you get this. X is equal to negative 2, right? Negative b. B equals 2. Therefore, negative b is negative 2. Plus minus the square root of 4 squared. Of 4. 2 squared is 4, which is also equal to b squared. Remember? 2b, b squared. So that's just going to be 4. Well, 1 times 1 is 1. Therefore, negative 4 times 1 is just negative 4 over 2 bracket 1 is just 2. This will cancel out because the square root of 0 is just 0, so you don't need to write that. So then, it's just going to be x is equal to negative 2 over 2, which is just equal negative 1. These two cancel out. Negative 1. That's your x, right? When y is 0, x equals 1. Alright. So now that we've gotten a little bit of some understanding of the quadratic formula, let's try to do an example. Let me just think of one. Okay, so actually before we do the example, I'd like to somewhat draw the graph for you so you can kind of visualize. So if I draw the y-axis here and then the x-axis here, this is not related to the quadratic. I mean it is, but this is just to show you kind of what it looks like. So this is negative 1. This is our x-intercept, or well, not x-intercept, but you get what I mean. The point where it just touches the x-axis, right? And then I sub. So the graph of this equation up here. The graph of this particular equation up here. It's gonna look something. Forgive my bad drawing. I'm not a mathematician. It's gonna look something like that. Okay, just for visualization. Okay, so let's do a problem. Let's solve this. Let's solve this one. So number 1, solve bracket 9x plus 5 bracket x plus 2 equals 0. Well, if we would like to use the quadratic formula, then actually you can just use the zero product property, but we don't need to do that today. That's for a different video. But if we would want to use the quadratic formula, this is not in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. There is a 0, but this is not related to that. So let me just underline this. Not in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, right? It's just not. It's completely different. You can visually see it. It's not different. So how are we gonna make this the same? I'll tell you. We're gonna need to expand this. We're gonna need to unfactorize this, if you will. So how are we gonna unfactorize this? Well, let's do it step by step, because I believe one way of learning thoroughly is doing it step by step. For the introduction. After the introduction, you can speed up. All right. So 9x plus 5 bracket x plus 2 equals 0, right? So then let's just expand this. So this is just going to be 9x bracket x plus 2 plus 5 bracket x plus 2 equals 0. If you're wondering why we write the x plus 2 twice, well, the 9x is applied to that, and it's also applied to that, whilst the 5 is applied to this and is applied to this. So if you think of it, both terms act on both terms, right? So that's why we write it twice. It's the same thing, because the 9x acts on these two, as shown, and the 5 acts on these two, as shown, right? So that's why we write it twice. Okay, so let's expand. Well, 9x times x, that's just 9x squared. 9x times 2 is just 18. 18x. Plus 5x, 5 times x, plus 10 equals 0, right? So you have 9x squared plus 23x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, we're gonna have to use the quadratic formula whether we like it or not. So let's just get started. Well, let's identify everything here. What's our a? Well, our a is just the coefficient in front of the x squared, which is 9. So a equals 9. B is just the coefficient in front of x, bx, which is just 23. And c is our constant term, which is just 10. So let's rewrite this formula. Let's rewrite this formula again. X equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, right? We're good. So, now, let's write our variables. X is equal to, well, what's b? B is 23. So negative b is just going to be negative 23 plus minus the square root of b squared. What's b? B is 23. So it's just going to be 23 squared minus 4. Remember, we don't have to do anything with that one. What's a? Well, a is 9, so let's plug that in. And what's c? Our constant term. Our constant term is just 10, right? So 10. Okay? And all of this is just going to be over 2a, which is the same thing as 2 times 9, right? Because a is 9, 2a should be, well, 9 times 2, 18. Okay? Right. Now this is the part where I'll need my calculator. So let's figure out this square root thing here. Right. So square root squared minus 4, 9 bracket 10. That's just going to be equal to 13. Okay, I didn't need it, but you know, I'm not a calculator myself. Okay, so x is equal to negative 23. Actually, I want to keep, plus minus. So you just use your calculator to evaluate the square root, just so it makes life easier. 23 plus minus 13, right? Because that's the square root. So we need to keep this plus minus. Why do we need to keep this plus minus? Well, let's go on a side quest here. Let me just finish this. Well, okay, why do we do plus minus? This is just to indicate that we want both the negative square root and the positive square root. So think of it this way. We have negative a squared and a squared, right? Well, both of those are just going to equal the same thing because a negative times a negative is a positive. So that's just going to be a squared. And this is also going to be an a squared. So if you take the square root of this, that you would want to take the plus minus square root because you don't know which one it came from. It could either be negative. You could have either multiplied a negative to get to this, or you could have multiplied a positive to get to this. So that's why we take the plus minus, because we don't know where it came from. We don't know the starting value. Of course, if we knew the starting value, then we would, you know, take one square root. But in this case, we don't know. And in most cases, you will not know. So that's why we take plus minus. All right. Anyway, think I need to hurry up. My phone's dying. Okay, so pay close attention to this problem versus this problem. You notice that on this problem, this square root equated to be 0. So we don't need to do this plus minus. Plus minus 0 is just, it's irrelevant, right? But in this case, plus minus 13 is very, very relevant, right? So in this case, there are two solutions, okay? There are two solutions. In this case, there's only one solution because, I mean, there is technically two solutions, but like, it's just 2 minus 0 or 2 plus 0. So it's not going to make a difference. This doesn't make a difference. But this will make a difference. So I'm gonna tell you how to write this. So let's keep on going from this little section. So x is equal to negative 23 plus 13 over 18, or x could be negative 23 minus 13. That's what plus minus means, plus or minus. That's why we do that. Over 18. Oh, sorry, that is not a 13. That is an 18. That is a 18. We gotta make that 13. Okay, now we can do our little stuff. So this is just gonna be x is equal to, well, what's negative 23 plus 13? Negative 23 plus 13, that's simply just going to be equal to negative 10 over 18, right? And which is also just going to be equal to negative 1, oh, sorry, negative, is negative, negative, oh, sorry, yeah, okay, yep. My brain kind of hung there. It's just going to be equal to negative 5/9, or x would simply just be equal to negative 23 minus 13, which is negative 36 over 18. So let's simplify. X is equal to negative 5/9, or x is equal to, well, negative 36 over 18. That's just negative 2. Negative 2. That's our answer. Put a little tick.